Welcome to Albuquerque Real Estate Talk episode. Got to do a silent dramatic pause or something.
Wait for it.
Yeah, wait for it.
Drum roll.
Episode 500. 500. I just started doing these shows every week in 2013 on 1600 AM KIVA, the Rock Talk, and appreciate Eddie giving us a voice all these years and people listening and tuning in and keeping us educated on what's going on in the real estate market. I mean, we talk about this, Tracy. People ask about doing this show every week. And I always say the greatest benefit to me is I have to keep up on what's going on so we can be knowledgeable. I do it anyway, but now I get to do it and we get to share it with
I
everybody.
thought you were going to say the greatest benefit was sitting here with me talking real estate once a week. Okay, I didn't really think that. So, Tego, it's been quite the run. 2013, that was a while back, right? 500
was.
episodes. So, last Saturday morning, I was listening to the Kiva Small Business Saturday, and I listened to Walt Arnold of SVN. It was a great show. And I loved his intro. He kind of gave history of him and his company. So let's do that. Let's do a little history of us and our company. Can you think back to 2002 when we had toddlers in the house and I decided to get a real estate license?
I know it was a big change. You had left your corporate career, actual multiple corporate careers, and where you were at home with the kids. I was in my corporate career and doing it, and you're like, I'm gonna go sell some real estate or at least get into the business. And you weren't even sure. It just kind of came
Well,
across.
so I was a college recruiter for Intel Corporation. I had been laid off right when our son came along. So it was good timing because I was thinking I might stay at home for a while anyway. And I had a really big habit of watching the Help Wanteds because I had been in human resources for 15, 17 years, first with American Furniture.
Help wanted. There's a
Help
whole
Wanted,
group of people that don't even know what the help
like
wanted
the
ads are.
Sunday newspaper.
Yeah.
The Help Wanted section of the newspaper, take the paper. And every week I would look at the Help Wanteds because that was my career for a long time, trying to make my ads relevant and make sure that they showed up in the paper, that we were paying for them or whatever. So I had that habit. And one Sunday, I saw Help Wanted for selling land at San Pedro Creek Estates in the East Mountains in Sandia Park. And I went, bingo, I can do that. Or our parents live there on 10 acres. And we went out there almost every Sunday for family dinner, supper, and we would go hiking in the arroyos and search for artifacts and things. And one time we saw a rattlesnake under a ledge and we knew where the springs were. And I said, I can sell that land. So I called, and that was the start of my career, is working selling land in San Pedro Creek.
It's not uncommon for realtors, people that become realtors or real estate brokers. This is their second career. It's very common. It's very common. But there's also a whole group that started as their original career as well.
I wish I would have started when I was 18, but
Yeah, I know.
probably wouldn't have been the same trajectory. But so from San Pedro Creek Estates, we live in Corrales, right? I drove to the East Mountains to work the sales office there. It was about 17 days a month, and my parents lived there, so I could take the kids with me, drop them off, work, but realized that probably it wasn't the best timing for me to be doing that because they'd sold all the good lots and never, even though it was 10 acres, it didn't have the best view, or it was rocky or whatever, or it was on the shadowy side of a hill or something. So I took the summer off, and then I started in residential real estate in 2003,
Yeah.
and have been doing that since. And then I made this brilliant decision to talk you into working with me, and you got licensed in 2007.
Yep.
And at first you did signs, you did marketing,
Photographs,
you did photos, you did everything.
Built a website.
Yep.
Vision
Website.
optimization, did a lot of stuff along that side. So yeah, anyway, it's been quite a ride, and thrilled to the thousands and thousands of people we've helped over the years. It's amazing. And
over 4,000, I know for sure.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know the exact number, but like a year or two ago, we looked and we were over 4,000 people helped. So Tego, just to keep on the line of finishing out the story. So in 2009, the market, as all of you might remember, was pretty bad in 2009. The housing market had pretty much crashed, and there were a lot of bank owns or short sale houses. And we were working, my sister Jane had joined us then. And we were just working because the website that you had the forethought to do became the most used realtor website for New Mexico home searches. And we were busy with buyers when there were lots of homes for buyers to choose from.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, Zillow started in 2006, but really the websites like Zillow and Trulia and realtor.com and homes.com, which are the big four right now, didn't have as much of an impact on the local. So we were one of the few local websites that where
Well,
buyers could go and find homes to search for.
and it was a real website. It wasn't just like a business card, which a
No,
lot of websites were those days. They weren't interactive those days. So we went out on a limb and put some money behind a really great website, which is still a great website, thanks to you to keep it going and updated and relevant. But in 2009, towards the end of the year, we were at Keller Williams at the time. The qualifying broker, which is sort of like the managing partner,
yeah,
called us to say, congratulations, you're the number one realtors for Keller Williams in 2009. And we really had no idea, right? We were just busy working. We were working from home. We called it the executive mudroom.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
We set up a bunch of desks in the mudroom
in the back of our house.
in
Yeah,
the in our house, which is a pretty good sized mudroom, right? But anyway, and from there we've just grown. Our team has grown. We needed help. We needed administrative help, and then other realtors recognized that we had good systems thanks to Tego. And our business has just grown. And at one point, we sold more homes than any realtor team in the state of New Mexico 3 years ago.
yeah. A couple
So
years in a row doing that,
yeah,
and so in 2013 we started doing the radio show.
right,
Eddie and we had known Eddie Aragon, who owns the Kiva and general manager and host, and I think Eddie does everything at the radio
yeah,
station,
yeah.
and invited us to start doing a Saturday morning show,
Well, we
and here we
started
are.
doing paid commercials and then he added in the Saturday.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyway, it's been a great run. And like you said, it's great because it makes us be prepared and really know our information every week because we want to make sure we provide relevant information to all of our listeners. But thank you for listening. There's something that you want us to cover. If you need to buy or sell or you want to invest in something, give us a shout. We have a great team and we'd be honored to help you.
all right, this is our topics. Usually I do this at the top of the show, but we wanted
I
to give a
know.
little
I
backstory.
just jumped ahead.
Yeah, I know. No, it's great. So the new rules. Okay, we got to do this. We still got to do this. The NAR settlement and
NAR, as in the National Association of Realtors.
yep, that there's changes in the rules and in the multiple listing service and how we interact with buyers and sellers, and actually how we interact with realtor to realtor as well. So we're going to go through that. There's a lot of misinformation out there, Tracy. I've been out there teaching this a lot to the realtor community, and I want to go through some of the myth and go through the misinformation that's out there, as well as some of the potential pitfalls that home buyers and home sellers need to be thinking about as we go forward. I've got a little bit of just home prices for July. We can go through that really quick, as well as Tracy, the mortgages. We've been on this last week. We talked about it, and it's been this roller coaster. So we dropped
Almost three quarters of a
yeah,
point.
3/4 of a point. Now they're back up a little bit. We're still about 1% lower than the peak this year, 2024 in May. So mortgage rates are
Favorable.
they're favorable. It's okay. It doesn't seem like it's created this huge surge in more home buyers. Haven't seen that. I don't know if you're feeling that or
I
not.
think we've seen a bit more activity, I believe, on homes being shown.
Mhm.
And I know several of the homes we have listed for sale went under contract this week. So maybe you've been doing a lot of teaching lately. So you probably haven't felt it the same. But good stuff, Tigo. So where are you going to start? Because I have some other information too. I want to talk about the home searches and the home showings I've been doing lately.
I want to talk about the 3 agreements in real estate,
Okay.
because that helps put all these changes that have happened in our business a little bit more into context. So there's three agreements in the real estate transaction. There's agreement between the homeowner, the seller, and the listing broker. So that's an agreement between, so you're the seller and me as a listing broker to basically hire to sell the house to get it sold. And there's a fee for that. It's negotiable, and it's been negotiable for many, 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 many years. And each individual broker can set their fee. So that's one agreement, right? Okay. Hiring you to sell my house, and this is how much I'm going to pay you if you bring a buyer. In the real estate business, generally, we don't get paid up front. We get paid by performance, meaning selling the property, right? We don't get paid. There are some companies that do some flat fee stuff, but there's very few of them, and it's not a very popular way to sell homes. Most people hire a real estate professional, realtor, and the realtor does all the work, spends all the money, does all the marketing, does all the content, does all the photographs and virtual tours and all that stuff and gets it out there, works a deal, carries that little baby through till closing, and then gets paid, right? So that's on the listing side. Buy side, there's a buyer broker and a buyer, right? And now that is a separate agreement. Did not used to be required
To have a written agreement.
between a buyer and a buyer broker. Did not used to be required. Now it's required.
Right. So to make that easy to understand, before we can take a prospective buyer to see a house, we have to have a written agreement of how we're going to work together.
Correct. There's three basic requirements of that agreement. You have to agree on how much the fees are. So the buyer and the buyer broker have to agree on what the fee is. It can be a percentage of sale price, it could be a dollar amount, but it has to be fixed. It can't be variable. It can't be, well, if I'll whatever the seller's offering, it can't be something like that. So it has to be a fixed number. So the buyer and the buyer broker have to agree on that fee.
How much the buyer broker is charging the buyer when they close on a house.
Correct. The only other requirements on there are a couple disclosures like that the compensations are negotiable or commissions are negotiable, and that commission whatever you've agreed to is set and can't be changed unless there's some sort of agreement between the buyer and the buyer broker to change it. And so that's the other agreement. So seller, okay, again, the three agreements: seller, listing broker, buyer, buyer broker. And then we've got the third agreement, which is the purchase agreement.
Sellers and buyers.
And that is an agreement between a seller and a buyer. The brokers are just the facilitators. They're not a party to that contract. That agreement is just between those two parties. And the thing that's interesting about this, every one of those agreements, there's negotiations, right? Or could be. I mean, again, brokers set their fees. They can or cannot negotiate them. That's up to them. But then you've got the purchase agreement, and that one has a lot of potential negotiations in it, correct?
Right.
So you've got obviously the price, the terms, the deadlines, the time frame, repairs. It just goes on and on and on. So that's really the hard part right there, is getting that from the point you make an offer, negotiate all the terms, and to get that all the way through to closing. So that's a pretty high level, but I just wanted to kind of go through that whole idea of this concept of the three agreements in real estate.
Perfect. So let me kind of different, but kind of piggybacking on what you said. So, what went into effect in the Albuquerque, central New Mexico area is that the compensation to a buyer broker is no longer just on our multiple listing service telling us, hey, the seller will pay you this much if you bring a buyer that we can agree to the contract on, that you will get paid this much. So now there's still that compensation being offered most of the time by a seller. Maybe it's to the buyer for concessions to pay their realtor. Maybe it's to the broker from the broker, and how that all works. But now there's this whole universe of a perhaps unrepresented buyer. Someone who says, I don't want to work with the listing agent and I don't want to work with a realtor to help buy this house. And now we as realtors have to decide if we're going to share our forms with somebody to fill out to make an offer on a house.
And let me tell just kind of explain why that could be a concern, because now that a buyer and a buyer broker have to agree on the fee up front and it's not being offered through the MLS any longer, there's a concern that there's going to be buyers that are just going to go it alone and not hire representation to help them buy a house. And or they just don't have the ability, or they don't realize that their buyer broker's fee could be negotiated as part of the purchase as well,
Right.
right? And so there's a concern that buyers can go it on their own, and buyers can do that. They've always been able to do that and go directly to a listing broker and make an offer.
Right. So for me, my big concern is an unrepresented buyer. Our purchase agreement is what, about 18 pages
Yeah,
long
something
or
like that.
so,
Yeah.
with all sorts of different things. And I'm just worried for buyers who decide to go that route. So I just thought I'd bring it up since it's sort of
And
an up and coming thing.
it's not every buyer. A lot of people understand the process, but there's just so many potential pitfalls and just all the, it's that whole saying, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the things that can come up. And that's why you have a guide to walk you through this process. So
Right. Right. Over 4,000
I,
transactions we've been involved
yeah,
in.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah. Let me switch topics here.
Go.
Something more light and fluffy. Talking contracts and things. So I have a couple different buyers I've been working with, which is not that common. I try to minimize my direct because I'm here doing training and coaching and mentoring of real estate professionals on our team. But I've been showing, and it's interesting because I have a client that's very specific, looking for views, right? And I am just surprised at how many houses don't say that they have views when I look at the pictures and I look at where they're at on a map and I go, wait, that house has views. Look out that window in this living room or whatever, right? But the other thing that's been interesting is my client would really love backyard access. And backyard access means that you could drive through and get to your backyard with a vehicle, right? Now there's lots of different ways to need backyard access. It could be you just want to be able to get back there with a mower or some bigger implement, or maybe you want to put a pool in and you want to make sure you can get the equipment back there to put a pool in, or you want to store a boat or an RV or a camper or something, right? So the size needs could be very different for what you need backyard access for. Well, my client happens to have a big RV, and not very many properties have backyard access or that the covenants for the neighborhood
That's what I was just thinking. It's like,
allow it.
yeah, some of the HOAs have restrictions on it, or the covenants, conditions, and restrictions CCNRs might restrict it as well. So you have to be aware of that.
Right. And the covenants and restrictions I've been reading lately are
Mm.
long.
Oh,
It's like trying to find out if an RV is allowed just because there's backyard access and just because you see something parked there. Now, I've been in neighborhoods where I see everybody has an RV behind a fence and I can clearly see it from the street, right? And then you go and you look at the CCNRs and it says that there shall be no RVs visible from the street, and you drive and you go, oh, almost every one of these houses, I can think of several neighborhoods that are like that, and no RVs, and no RVs according to the covenants. Then there's another neighborhood in North Rio Rancho called Vista Entrada, where a developer bought up most of the lots at Idalia and sort of 528 by the judicial complex, but they didn't buy them all up because some of the sellers didn't want to sell. So they put covenants and restrictions on the property. They put in paved streets, underground utilities, sold lots to different builders and people, but there are a few lots where you can still see an RV because they were not part of that covenant and restriction for that neighborhood.
interesting.
So you have to be careful to make sure that if you think you're going to put something in your yard, that the yard is really allowed, or that it's really allowed in the yard.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
I said this and now I have to go back to it. We kind of got off topic, but well, we'll jump around. It's all good. I just wanted to cover some of the myths that are flying around out there about the settlement and the changes. One of the things I saw, and I just have to laugh, is that that because of this change in the rules regarding working with buyers and sellers, that home prices are going to drop. And yeah, no, that's it
Well,
it
some
should
could
not.
change, but
No, it should not. I mean, home prices go up and down and change all the time, and we're probably going through a seasonal change right now here in Albuquerque. But I don't see it really having an impact on home prices. The other thing that's out there is that the fees that buyers and buyer brokers and listing brokers charge will change. Well, that's yet to be seen. We just don't know how this is going to play out. There's an extra negotiation now involved, and so maybe that will. We're just not sure yet. So we're gonna see where that goes. So those were a couple things that I had on my list, and I wanted to bring them up because I had talked about it, and then I needed to circle back on it. All right, I want to break down the home prices from July because I wanted to look at this some different ways because here in Albuquerque we just finished July. We had good home sales. It's definitely down from we've seen over previous years, the number of homes, but prices for the most part are either at an all-time high or about an all-time high for closed sale prices in July. So give you an example, for like median price of a single family detached home is $370,000 now. Those are the homes that closed in July, and that's again midpoint of all the homes that sold. But for an attached home, which is either condo or townhome, is 267,000, so about 100,000 less. And of course, usually those are smaller, but then you also got to balance out the HOA fees. Many times you have higher HOA fees, especially with condos versus a single family home. And then another way to break it down is price per square foot. Oh, actually, no, I want to talk about this. Average price, get this, of all the homes that sold in Albuquerque, average price of a single family detached home is now 300, no, $438,000, 438.
so the median was 370, you said,
The median was, yeah,
versus
median was
430
370, and yeah,
average,
370, and average was 439. Both of those numbers,
440. Wow.
yeah, both of those numbers are all-time highs for the Albuquerque market. Price per square foot for detached homes is $207 a square foot, which doesn't mean a whole lot just in a vacuum, but that's about 3.5% higher than a year ago. And that's probably where we're at, somewhere in that range on price appreciation. Again, it depends how you look at it. Price per square foot's 3.5%. Average price is 6.5%. Median price is 6%. So it really depends on which number you're looking at and how that would how much it's changed. And obviously there's always a difference there depending on what you've got going on. So July home prices, we may have hit the peak for the year. We hard to say right now, but generally we see home prices peak out July, August. Of course, we just had back to school, Tracy, or really, I mean, this is the week, right? Everybody's doing the back to school thing. The showing activity, the number of people out looking at homes, people putting homes on the market slows down a little bit. So over the next few weeks, we'll see how it shakes out, and if activity picks up again, in any significant matter. I mean, there's still 300 homes in the Albuquerque market that went under contract in the last week. So there's still plenty of activity out there.
Speaking school back in session. So typically, Tigo, this time of year, right in as the time where kids are getting ready to go back to school. So not every school's back in session yet. There's a few of the charter schools or private schools that are still like on the 19th or something. But
Mhm.
between now, but most of them are already back in session. But we do see less homes being viewed right before school starts and
Yep.
right as kids are getting back in school. And it's about a week later, things pick up again, right? Everyone's kind of back in their groove. But it's interesting because we tend to see a lot of people in the summer searching for homes by schools. And so always important for us to put in when we list a property for sale the school information, which high school, which middle school, which elementary school that house is in the district of. And there's a lot of great information out there on the web, of course, about different schools, how they're rated. One of the things that, well, something that a lot of my clients have said is when they buy a house and it's in a school district that wasn't their top choice, but they went, this house is great, we're going to make it work, is they say, really, the school district doesn't matter as much as they thought it would because it's really about each teacher and what teacher you get and how your child meshes with that teacher and things. And some of my past home buyers have said that that they've been at a school that would have probably been their bottom choice of where their school house should be for the school district, and they've just had amazing, wonderful experiences. And then they get online and they look at greatschools.net or schooldigger.com or one of those sites, and they look at the reviews because it's supposedly just by people who had children attending there or currently attending, and they read all these negative things about the school and they go, they had a very different experience than my child, right? Or my children. So it's kind of interesting. It's just like everything on the internet, right? You can find lots of people saying bad things about everything, a restaurant or a real estate company or
I've never heard that. I've never seen that.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Although
Don't don't get me started on
I I'm like
fake reviews and fake. Yeah.
yeah, I'm
Anyway,
like the rest of the world though. I read reviews before I do a lot of things. But I do like you, Tico. I throw out the odd one where somebody says, "I would never go to that restaurant because the hostess didn't greet me right away or because blah blah blah, because a fly landed on my food." Like it's the restaurant's fault. It's like, okay, I
yeah.
can throw that review out the window. Anyway, there's my all about schools for the day.
There were 2 news stories this week I wanted to hit on that came across, and in one of them, there was a story, I think it was KLB, yeah, KLB4 TV. They did a story about the housing market, very kinda light, fluffy story, but the the thing that jumped out as me at me as it said, "There are 1,000 more homes on the market than there were a year ago." And I'm like, "Yeah, no, no." I mean, there's a total of 2,000 homes on the market in Albuquerque right now, and so I had to point that out, and anyway, I wasn't. I guess the reason I point stuff out like that is that the real estate reporting that we get seems to be just so minimal, right? They don't go in depth, and so they said 1,000 more homes than last year. Well, how many were there last year? How many are there this year? How much difference does it change? All they said is 1,000 more homes. It's like, well, that's not very helpful. So anyway, there's that. And then there was I put back out was the governor's office put out an application for people to apply for the director. No, it's not director. I'm sorry, the director's already there. But for the office of housing, it's actually, I didn't realize this, but New Mexico was one of the few states that did not have a office through the governor's office related to housing. Well, there is one. Daniel Warath, I guess he's the director of that group, and I follow him on Twitter, and he put it out. It's like, "Hey, we're hiring for people to help with this." And I like it. I like their mission. I like what they're talking about and how to fix the housing. It is broken, right? We
Yeah.
know. They estimate in the state that we're like 30,000 housing units short and 30 to 40,000 housing units short. And they're dealing with the homeless issues as well as just the fact that we just don't have enough homes. And the thing that I liked, it wasn't just saying affordable, right? It wasn't just saying affordable housing. Yes, we need affordable housing, but we need all housing. So, and they were talking about implementing changes in zoning and the way the approval process and trying to streamline that because that's where a lot of it is broken. So, anyway, that was interesting. It came out this week, and hopefully, knock on wood, that we will get some progress on some of our housing challenges here in New Mexico.
Sounds good. Well, here we are. Time's up. I was thinking of all these other stories that I came across this week just in out and about doing real estate, but no time for that. So
No time.
another week. Always great to be here. Give us a call. Tracy Tego Venturi, Venturi Realty Group of Real Broker. And we look forward to hearing from you and helping you any way we can with your real estate needs.
We're at 505-448-8888, and that's it. Episode 500 in the books. Take care.